Thanks for staying with us here on Breakfast Central. A coalition of opposition heavyweights, Atiku Abubakar, Peter Obi, Nasir El-Rufai, Rotimi Amici and others last week officially adopted the African Democratic Congress, ADC, as their platform to challenge the ruling APC in 2027. The coalition says it's not just about power, it's about rescuing Nigeria from what they call a creeping civilian dictatorship. Former Senate President David Mark, now ADC chairman, says the goal is to stop Nigeria's descent into a one-party state.
And the APC? Well, they're not exactly rolling out the welcome mat, with the presidency showing it remains focused, telling the coalition to forget 2027 and focus on 2031 instead. Presidential spokesman Sunday Dare didn't mince words, calling the coalition a desperate assembly of disgruntled politicians and said none of them can match Tinubu's political credentials. So, here's the big question. Is this a confident ruling party brushing off the noise, or a jittery APC trying to downplay a real threat? Joining us for this discussion is the chairman of the All Progressives Congress in Cross River State and the National Secretary Forum of APC Chairmen in Nigeria, Mr. Alphonsus Ogar Eba. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, my dear sisters and brothers. Good morning, Nigerians.
Good morning.
Good morning. Is the APC afraid about, this coalition that is happening? The APC tries to put forward a very confident stance, but is that confidence really rooted? Or is there some measure of concern about the powerhouses that have come together under the coalition of the ADC?
Thank you very much. I am a political evangelist, so permit me the choice of taking you on a voyage of ecclesiastic. And let me start with the biblical provision in the book of Isaiah 54, verse 15, which says that they will surely gather. But because this gathering is of evil, they will surely fail. And let me tell you why we have this optimism, why we have this confidence. It is not arrogance, but realistic confidence that is born out of the fact that even from the takeoff of the so-called opposition, they are already in a state of higgledy-piggledy. The confusion ranging from the allegation that there is a criminal and forceful takeover of ADC by some strange bedfellows tells you that the foundation is already faulty. And nobody builds on a sandy soil and the building will stand. Again, permit me the luxury of taking you on some historical anthropological documentation. It was Jonathan Swift, the great Anglo-Irish writer and clergyman, who said in 1726 that there is somebody called Man Mountain, and there was a city called Lilliput. I present to you today that the Jagaban, that is our president, is a political man mountain. And then a coalition of desperate, outspent political forces of yesterday who have attained political menopause, whose ideas are already barren, whose capacity have become sterile, cannot be a force to make us jittery. And I speak with this optimism because 20-something years ago, I propounded a political theory that a coalition or a concatenation of persons that does not coagulate or agglutinate is tantamount to a painful political dysentery and diarrhea that can only be cured through the administration of those medications that used to be administered in the 70s and early 80s, called Flagyl, tetracycline, and present-day Imodium. And there is another one called Alagbin and APC to attenuate the pain. If you were old enough, then you know that there was a medication called APC. It is therefore not by mistake that today there is a political called APC. We have the cure to the initial gra-gra of the so-called coalition. It is on that basis that I speak and that my leaders speak with this realistic optimism. And I want you to take it to the bank.
I want to go back to the scripture you quoted, and you talked about, this being a gathering, though they gather, they will scatter. The major reason so far that we know that the ADC has gathered is to topple the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu-led presidency. And part of why, and the reasons they have put forward would be the quality of life that Nigerians have led in the past 2 years and how things haven't gotten better for Nigerians. Would you argue about the quality of life, when you hear that complaint about the quality of life of Nigerians, would you argue that it's been the best time in the past 2 years?
It is not the best, but it is better than where we were going.
Are you sure?
There was no economy.
Is it better than where we were coming from?
There was no economy. Can you hear me?
Yes, I was asking, is it better than where we were coming from?
And that is, just listen to me. President Tinubu took over on the 29th day of May 2023. The erstwhile administration had pegged the issue of subsidy to end in May. The president had a choice to either continue in that economic issue that was mere phantasmagorical, or to face the reality of writing his name and positioning Nigeria on a voyage of reality. He made a choice to salvage Nigeria. What was the economy that was in place? A regime of fraudulent practice of payment of subsidy. A rollback arrangement where you go to the central bank, get dollars for $450 and come to sell for 700 and something. They call it round tripping in CBN economic lexicon. These were not the best for Nigeria. And Nigeria was going to get to the status of what happened in Zimbabwe. Do not forget, within the period of 3-4 years in the life of the last administration, we were printing money like Idi Amin was doing. And we printed 33 trillion in the names of ways and means. What was it for? We're using to pay salaries. We're using it for consumption. We're using it to pay subsidy, which was very fraudulent. We had therefore eaten our yesterday, by these political do-gooders who today want to emasculate as people that have come to rescue us. And that is why I say, perhaps you thought we were enjoying them. We're living fake life in this country. The reality brought about by the economic reforms of Mr. President is the best for us. Anytime you wake up from your sleep, it's your morning. That is why your daughter or your son can wake up in the evening and look at you and say, Mommy, good morning. That is his morning, or that is her morning. My dear sister and brothers and Nigerians alike, it was Olarotimi who said in his book, the gods are not to blame. That because the owner of a farm is slow in calling a thief, the thief turns around to call the owner of the farm a thief. The people that have gathered today, if you permit me and we have the luxury of time, I dare to compartmentalize issues in terms of the administrative performance and to tell you how decrepit their ideas were yesterday and the kind of rescue they need to do to their own brain and the kind of confession they need to make to Nigerians. They do not have any integrity or any reputational stance to stand before Nigerians and say they want to rescue Nigeria because they do not have the capacity. And like I said, they have attained menopause. And at menopause, you know, a woman cannot give birth again. These people are spent forces. They are not coming to add any value. They are desperate, and some of them cannot do anything. We are on the right trajectory to reposition Nigeria, and that is what we say. Nigerians, please, the president did not say it was going to be a pleasant moment in the initial first 1, 2, or 3 years, but things are getting better. This time last year, don't forget, a bag of rice was 130,000. Today, it is 60-something thousand. Things are getting better. It might not be where we were when we were living those fake lives. Don't forget, we're using 97% of our revenue to pay salaries, to pay debts, But today it has gone to 60-something%. And it will continue to gradually decline because there are economic reforms that are already yielding results. Again, I appeal to Nigerians, just be patient with us. We are the best for you. We are here for you. The president means well. He is a Democrat, the first of his kind to lead this country. And by the grace of God, with God on our side, we will succeed.
Thank you very much for taking us down memory lane. And many Nigerians would also remember that the current president was on the campaign trail twice when former President Muhammad Buhari was elected. And it was also an APC government. So for you to come out and criticize the past government, this current APC government succeeded, is quite contradictory in the sense that, I mean, it's an APC government. So what do you want Nigerians to do? How do you want Nigerians to react, since you're complaining about the same government you're part and parcel of? And a lot of the members that you've criticized as strange bedfellows that just joined the ADC were also part and parcel of this APC, of the last APC administration. How do you respond to that, sir?
Let us be able to understand what is called criticism and what is called truth. I introduced myself as, I'm sure you recall how I introduced myself, a political evangelist. I speak only what is truthful and what is truth. I am not criticizing the previous government. And all I have said is, is our life better than it was? You took me back. And so I needed to place the reality of yesteryears for you. On the issue of the people that were in this same administration that we talked about, that brings to the fore the character of these persons. And that is why I say we can compartmentalize their performance of yesterday and what they seek to do today. It is not my place to be the judge. Nigerians are here to judge them. Take them one after the other. They either have been vice presidents, they have been governors, they have been ministers. Judge what their performance was, and you'll be able to assess them, whether they have anything to offer. But from my own point of view, I have clearly said, these are part of the people that contributed to the major problems we face today that Mr. President has come to solve. They are not the Messiah we seek. The president has come today to rescue this situation. And I throw back the question. Ask any of them who wants to say they want to rescue us. What would they have done differently if they were the ones that power was handed over to on 29th May without any provision for subsidy? And we were using 97% of our revenue to service debt and to pay salaries, left with only 3% for infrastructural development. What would they have done differently? That is my question. It took a courageous leader in person of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to say, no, we owe the generation unborn to reset and redirect. He removed the flotation. I mean, he had to float the naira. Only day before yesterday, naira today can again be used abroad. It means there will be lesser pressure now on the dollars. And as soon as that is done, the dollar will begin to retrace its potency. And then naira will begin to move like a giant that it used to be. And we will get to that days of the early 80s where the naira was better off a currency than the dollar. That is what the president has done, and it deserves the commendation of Nigerians. I'm not to be condemned. I watched Mr. Peter Obi yesterday, man I respect so much, and I thank him. I thank him for what he said. He said he needed 4 years to govern Nigeria. When he was asked the question about power, he said Egypt used 5 years to fix their power. It means he is not truthful to the 4 years he's telling Nigeria. It means that in 4 years, he cannot fix the power needs of Nigeria. But we have a president today that has come up to say, let us have other energy sources. You have not heard of CNG before. You have not heard about the lithium. Today in Nasarawa, people, Nigerians, are looking inwards. There is a new political and economic outlook for Nigeria. There is investor confidence. A president that came on board to ensure that they repatriated $7 billion that was making the aviation industry to suffocate was released. And today, foreign airlines have confidence in Nigeria. Should rather be praised. The president of today have diversified that we must go back to the agro-industrial revolution, and only recently had to commission over 2,000 tractors with another 4,000 coming again, so that we can grow what we eat must be commended. A president that today have said the poor should not pay taxes. Only this morning I read how Labour in UK is trying to put a 2% tax on the wealthy. Nigeria is already on the right track, and we must commend Mr. President for it. All we seek of Nigeria is just your patience. We are sorry, we apologize for the mistake of APC in the last 8 years or thereabout, but we have come to fix some of those errors. And that was why we brought our best pair in person of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Senator Kashim Shettima, two men that are making the difference. And I pray and appeal to everybody to be patient with us.
All right. You've said a lot in the spate of looking at what the APC is doing currently. You did mention that monies were indeed made. But there's a question everyone is asking. From the removal of the subsidy and the amount you just mentioned that was made, the question is where all these monies go into. And there's a very conspicuous statement of Nigerians should tighten their belt. But it doesn't seem like those in power are doing the same. Or is it a case of Nigerians just suffer for now while we will continue to remain in a state of enjoyment as we fix the country? Or you don't see it that way?
When I was in secondary school, I learned one word called rhetorical question. Rhetorical questions actually do not deserve an answer. But let me say that your question is not only rhetorical, but even to the deaf and to the blind, it is very, very visible and audible that we know where the monies are going to.
So where is it going to?
Until the President Bola Ahmed came on board, until he came on board, the states were only earning 1/4 of what they earn today. You now know that the chunk of this money goes to the subnational. Today, there are very audacious projects that have been undertaken by the present administration. It tells you where this money is going to. Today, there is what is called the NER fund, that children of the poor can have access to grants, to loans, to go to school. No child of the poor can complain again that he cannot go to school or she cannot go to school on account of money. There have been palliative to cushion the effect of the hunger that went to its highest level sometime last year, when the bag of rice went to about 130,000. All these were not just from monies that were picked from the floor. These are some of the monies that were cutting. Today, Abuja is gradually becoming London, and you are seeing it before your eyes. The Lagos that you used to know that you operate from, there are infrastructural development, and across the entire 36 states, there is performance across every state. This money does not only go to APC governors. I took a time to read something even this morning. Governor Deye Diri had a cause to confess that he wrote a letter to the previous administration that the president never answered. But this president, he met with the president once, and today he has released funds to continue with those projects. Governor of Abia State said, this man is supporting my project. I have no reason. I will support him. The governor of Plateau State have said, oh, at every moment the president has come to us. We will stand by him. I thank both the governor of Akwa Ibom and Delta, two major states that have been the mumu button of the opposition element before now. And you can explain that their movement from where they used to be to where they are has brought more strength, has brought more efficacy and potency to the APC. And that is why we keep celebrating them as the newest candelabrum of APC. And it continues. Today, look at Kaduna, which used to be the den of violence and banditry. The governor of Kaduna State has changed the narrative. Today, look at what is happening across the states. There is improvement in every area of our economic pursuit. So we know where the money is going to. But as a journalist, I know you are entitled to
honorable. Well, it's.
Yes.
I must say that you are very good with words, especially selecting the stories that we usually see, especially on papers. But you've also not touched on the other ones too, which we expected that you would mention. You did mention Kaduna. You never mentioned the food basket of the nation, which is also undergoing insecurity. Neither did you also mention that of Jos Plateau State. But I would leave that aside. You mentioned the aviation sector, and then we having a lot of foreign aviation, partners, countries, or whichever, flight carriers. But are you also aware that Nigeria has the highest taxation in aviation? Hence why we barely have some other foreign aviation companies come to Nigeria. That's one. Secondly, you also mentioned that a lot of things are happening in Lagos State. I live in Lagos. I don't know where you live. I can categorically tell you that I entered almost 6 potholes, and my tires I had to change many times. My colleague here has done a report on how dark Lagos is. Let's not even go to other states where there are many issues. What are we saying here as journalists? We're not saying that we're trying to in any way paint a story or a depiction of what is not true. While you are doing your job, we do understand as a member of the ruling party, we would like you to also be kind to Nigerians who are feeling the brunt, and let's analyze these things carefully, not in a way that it makes it seem like there's nothing wrong when things are actually wrong. Please permit me to go back to my question. Are we saying that the people who are ruling should actually continue to enjoy while those Nigerians should manage and tighten their belts? What does that mean in this instance?
Before I answer your question, because you have mentioned Benue and Plateau, I sit here again to publicly extend our condolences to the lives that were lost. The issue of insecurity had been contained and curtailed in the last few years. However, we saw the resurgence of that in recent time. But by the special grace of God, I am sure Mr. President has given a marching order to the security agencies. This whole issue will be curtailed. The inauguration of the Nigerian Forest Service Security Services will do a lot in containing this issue of banditry in the forest. That having been said, I am not one person that will say, let those in power enjoy while the masses continue to suffer. That is why today, when you hear political evangelism, we are holding government to account. I led my colleague, state chairman, to commend the Minister of Works for what he's doing, to commend the Minister of Agriculture in what he's doing, to commend the Minister of FCT, these three outstanding ministers. Today we have few others in the Ministry of Industries who are also making the difference, in the Ministry of Health who are making the difference. And our charge to Mr. President is for any of your cabinet members who cannot live to our expectation, to percolate your renewed hope, arrangement and agenda to the grassroots, please take them out. I agree with you that some state governors at the subnational may not have done so well in the kind of money that is being pumped onto them. That is why we must redirect our focus of criticism, not on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, but let us now begin to put our searchlight on various states. For Cross River State, I can tell you, the Sweet Prince has changed the narrative. You need to use the torchlight in the afternoon to see whether you can find any pothole in Calabar. The governor of the state has changed the narrative. Calabar is back to its glorious days. There is infrastructural development in almost every local government in Cross River State. There is no critic in Cross River State that can come and sit down, even anywhere today, to say Governor 2 is not doing well. He is putting the money in its right direction. And from your own analysis, we will now call on our colleagues. Please, I sat down on national television. This was great about your governor. Please go and tell them to respect what Mr. President has charged them to do, because life must be more meaningful for an average Nigeria. We are on the same page on that. We are tightening our belt. You must understand that what are necessities might not be necessarily necessary for some of the critics. Like people were saying recently, what was the need in going to rehabilitate the International Conference Center? My dear brother, until recently, we had no place to call a conference center. And the property we have, if we leave it in that state, it was becoming so decrepit. There was need for rehabilitation. The Minister of FCT has just told us that in 3 weeks, they have made 700 million. If 39 billion was used for the rehabilitation, and in 3 weeks you can make 700 million, it means that in a year or in a month, you can make close to about 800 million, and in a year, you are talking about close to 8 billion. And in about few years from now, we would have gotten the entire money we use in rehabilitating that. That is business for you. And we want Nigerians to look at some of these important issues. The Nigerian aeroplane that was bought in 2005, the presidential jet, was put for sale. An aircraft that was producing it before it was bought 20-something years from now, you say you should still leave it to lay waste. It makes no sense. You can sell that to some of the commercial airlines. They will manage it. It is not for Mr. President to fly with that kind of aircraft. So you must understand some of these issues that people complain that we are spending on frivolities. They are necessarily necessary.
Does it include the monies that were allocated to the office of the First Lady, which is not constitutional, and not forgetting to almost 15 billion was also spent on renovating and fixing the Vice President's house? I mean, these are just facts that are there, Honorable, that we can see. I mean, like I would say again, while we respect your penchant for coming forth to speak very, very graciously about the All Progressives Congress, we would also like you to analyze some of its internal mistakes, if possible, and see the way forward so that Nigerians can understand that the party we are talking about daily on national TV, on papers, also admit, like you've done, somehow, that listen, we have these weaknesses and we're willing to listen and make some adjustments. Or we should just take it hook, line, and sinker that all is well.
I don't know why you say I admitted that we had weaknesses. I said there were challenges yesterday that the president is fixing. As far as I'm concerned, Mr. President is on the right trajectory and we must continue to support him. But like I said the reforms comes with pains. And Mr. President did not promise that it was going to be Uhuru or an El Dorado for us. He said there were going to be challenges, and these are the challenges we are facing it. If you go back to the Bible, when Joseph the dreamer went before Pharaoh, he said there will be 7 years of plenty. There will be 7 years of famine. We had over 20-something years of plenty during the military era before the South Revolution came. We went into the 16 years of PDP. We still had it plenty. But when the APC government came on board, the crude oil that we're selling per barrel at over 130 went to about $26 per barrel under President Buhari. Nigeria went down. And from then, we have not had it so well. But we're still living those ostentatious life. And we have a president that have come on board now to say, please, this is the direction.
So by saying what you've just said now, by saying what you've just said, you admit that the APC shares liability in determining where or in analyzing where Nigeria is, because President Tinubu was running. In fact, during the campaign, oftentimes we would hear that they're building from where President Muhammadu Buhari had stopped. So by saying this now and talking about, you've just criticized President Muhammadu Buhari, are you admitting that the APC had a role to play? Because it is an APC government that handed over to the current APC government.
I said the economic reality that faced President Buhari was what necessitated those performances that you consider very poor. At $28 per barrel of crude oil under President Buhari, there was nothing much for him to do. But if he had the courage, like the president has exhibited, he would have removed subsidy long ago. But he did not do it. He did it on the twilight of his administration. And the president we have today said, I want to continue from where my predecessors stopped. That does not mean that he was going to continue on the trajectory of the fraudulent, subsidy regime. He had to put a stop to it. And let me tell you one thing that we must commend this president for. If he was going to do it just for the purpose of re-election, he would have carried Nigeria on that phantasmagorical administrative voyage that would have landed us in Gangum. But he said, no, I stand for the next generation. And this is what we must do, we must put an end to it. And subsidy is gone, and gone forever.
Okay, now, Honourable, so many Nigerians have complained about the stifling of democratic voices in the country. For example, we witnessed what happened in the aftermath of the End Bad Governance, and the government is always jittery about protests and Nigerians coming out to express their grievances against the ruling APC. We even had a situation, a very embarrassing situation, where minors were arraigned and charged for treason until the president had to intervene personally in that matter. There's also talks of the weaponization of cyber stalking laws that the government goes against critics of the administration and, you know, arrest them. For someone with the democratic pedigree of Mr. President coming from the Nadeko days, why are we witnessing this in this current administration? Why is the government fearful of protest and stifling opposition voices?
No, you must understand what you mean by protest. There is a constitutional right for people to express their ambivalence towards any government policy or any government that is in existence. Mr. President is a Democrat, the same way I am. I have participated in protests before. In 2012, I had just given birth to my baby, and I went to even participate in that protest against the then subsidy issue. And like the book of Jeremiah will say, when I was a child, I speak like a child. I acted like a child. Now I have come to understand as an adult, and based on empirical evidence of what happened during the EndSARS or End Bad Governance this thing. I am from Cross River State. Go and see what the EndSARS protest did to us in the state. It will take us the next 20-something years or 30 having a good leadership to rebuild Cross River State. Nothing was left of all our structures and even private properties. You saw what happened in part of Nigeria. You saw what happened in Lagos. This is because criminal elements take advantage of this protest now to hijack it. It means that knowledge of what protest used to be has now been misinterpreted and misapplied. And therefore, when there is need for protest, you should be able to have it properly organized, make your points, say from where you are going to. There is no need, say you want to go and remain and occupy one area, and forever so. Because criminals will come and hijack, they will maim, they will destroy, they will do arsonism. And that is why Mr. President have said, no, for any inch of block we have erected, there is no need destroying it. Make your points known. We are open and welcome to criticism that is very constructive, but not destructive. That has been our position.
But in the 2012 protest that you... But in the 2012 subsidy protest that you and Mr. President were a big part of, I mean, there was no destruction. It's a constitutional right, and I don't think the government's responsibility is to protect the protesters and make sure there's no breakdown in law and order. So you cannot guilt-trip the citizens and say because X, Y, and Z happened during EndSARS, therefore protests should be limited to certain areas. You can't tell the people how, I mean, where it hurts the most.
We can tell the people, and that is why we are a government. It is our duty to protect lives and property. The EndSARS protest brought a lot of calamity to this country. I just enumerated it. The End Bad Governance protest did same. And that was why when there was an attempt, again on the 1st of August, to do the End Hunger protest, we said, no, you cannot do that. Because over 2,000 years ago, if you are a Christian, you would have known that the children of Israelites even cried for food. Hunger has been with us. It has not graduated to the level where people should go to the street because they want to give the dog a bad name in order to hang it. And by the grace of God today, a tuber of yam, by this time that was selling for 9,000 last year, today is selling for 3,000.
No, where did you buy a tuber of yam? Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. Please, sir, where did you buy a tuber of yam for 3,000 naira? That one I challenge. Because I tried to buy yam last week, and it was going for 9,000 naira.
I am from Ogoja. I am from Yala, Cross River State. If you want me to buy yam and send to you at 3,000,
please do.
I will stand in the market and do a video call to you and ban and send to you.
Honorable, please
it depends
do,
on the
please.
size of yam you are talking about.
Okay.
The size of your tuber that you are talking about is what I don't know. But the average tuber of yam, we are a growing nation of yam. The belt of Taraba, Nasarawa, Benue, Cross River, we farm yams. But I know in Lagos, you face a lot of things because you don't farm.
But honorable, before you say Lagos, before the administration, we're buying yam for 600 naira now, honorable. 600, 700. Honorable.
No, that is when we're living a phantasmagorical economy.
So we should see. Honorable, let's bring this conversation down. Let's calm down. Maybe let's remove our tie and suit small. Let me just go down. Honorable, permit me just to, sorry for butting in my colleagues. I just want to ask one question before we move and change the topic. You said you took part in the protest, Occupy Nigeria in 2012. I want to ask, do you think that the President Tinubu administration, in which you were part of and still part of, owes former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan an apology for having interrupted the process which you are now doing today? Because fuel was selling for 87 naira. President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan had the stance, the courage to remove subsidy, which would have taken fuel to about 148 naira. But you stood in the middle and stopped him from doing that. But you are now doing the thing that he wanted to do back then. Don't you think this presidency should actually have an award and a letter to say, we sincerely apologize for having made that mistake and that error? Or you don't see it as anything wrong? Maybe you feel he didn't do it right, or you feel, whatever he did then was wrong. You were right.
No. The point of whether we owe President Jonathan an apology does not arise in this case. And that is because what we have done today is not what he did then. What he did then was increment of pump price of petroleum. It was not removal of subsidy. Nigeria was still going to be paying subsidy, this fraudulent subsidy. And don't forget, they told us then that there were cabals in government and that this practice was fraudulent. If President Jonathan had the courage to say, let subsidy go like the president have done today, and we now challenge him, I will say that we owe him an apology.
Actually,
but he was only increasing the pump price of petroleum.
So, the attempt, just to be clear, it was the removal of subsidy that was attempted that led to the Occupy Nigeria protest, or is it something else we're talking about? Because he did try to remove subsidy at the time, and that was what led to the Occupy Nigeria protest.
The removal of subsidy was increment of petroleum prices.
Yeah, but that automatically happens as a result of the removal of subsidy.
Provision for payment of subsidy.
Yeah, it's an offshoot of the removal of subsidy, just like we saw here. As soon as subsidy was removed, fuel invariably increased.
Honorable,
go back to that period. As journalists, you have the documentation.
Okay, Honorable, so why is the fuel price?
Jonathan is still alive with us. In 2012, I was already an adult, fully involved. It was increment. This is an outright removal of subsidy and flotation of the naira. What we have done also is to remove subsidy for the issue of dollars. Two very giant economic policies that have turned Nigeria for the...
Permit me to interject,
this is
sir.
what we have done.
Permit me to interject, sir. The report have it that on the 1st of January 2012, President Goodluck Jonathan announced the removal of fuel subsidy, therefore adjusting the pump price of petrol from 65 naira per litre to 141 naira in a move that sparked mass protest known as Occupy Nigeria across major cities of the country.
That is still a regulated economy. If subsidy is removed, you cannot peg the price of petroleum products. It will be determined by market forces. To peg it at that amount you're talking about, perhaps the morphological context in which the synthetic construction was brought could be said to be removal of subsidy. Yes, it is synonymous, but what happened was only an increment of petroleum prices. And that's why they could peg it at a specific amount. That is not removal.
Okay, Honorable. I mean, currently we hope that we do get the response of the former president, Goodluck Jonathan. Hopefully his aides are watching. We should have a one-on-one with him, and possibly we'll ask the same question, even though documents here show that it was driven towards the removal of subsidy. But
and after 1 week of protest, the price was reduced to about 87 naira.
Exactly.
If he was driving towards, that somebody was driving, he was on a voyage to somewhere. In our own case, on the 29th day of May 2023, the president came like the giant that he is. The Asiwaju, the Jagaban, and said, subsidy is gone and it has gone forever. There is nothing to play with economic policies that has...
It's the same thing, sir.
But it's the
same thing. There was an announcement that was made about the removal of subsidy. But it would seem that we obviously cannot agree, but there is an announcement about the removal. There was an announcement about the removal of subsidy, which led to the increase in pump price of petrol and then the protest. But we've stayed on this matter for too long. I want us to move to another conversation because it would seem that we don't seem to agree on this. There are so many things that you have said that unfortunately we don't have time to address that I probably may not agree with. For example, the reference you made to when my colleague had asked you about protest, and then you saying that, and he's saying that you can't tell the child, I mean, you can tell the people where he pinches them. And he said you can't because you're the government. It's akin to saying beating a child and asking the child not to cry. There's been public outcry from young Nigerians, not just young Nigerians, young, old, even the Nigerians in the diaspora, have complained. But then again, you firmly believe that things, yes, they may not be uhuru, but they are a lot better, even though that stands to be corrected. But let's talk about the APC. As we count down to 2027, it would seem that, many have argued that governance has taken a backseat, as it looks like it's more politics, campaign season. David Mark had criticized the APC-led presidency or administration of several things, such as psychophancy, turning the National Assembly, basically working in cahoots with the legislative arm. And also, we've seen that happen in many cases where the president is coming and they're singing on your mandate we shall stand. And it seems like, where's the era of checks and balances that should exist? Whilst we're not saying that they should be enemies, but there should be some measure. Everybody in the house is not an APC person. How about sticking to the Nigerian national anthem? Another issue of criticism would be the fact that there have been accusations about the APC working behind the scenes to destabilize the opposition. We saw a mass number of defections of very key figures in other political parties. And at the time, it was welcomed. The APC largely celebrated them. The president celebrated them, saying, you're very welcome to this other side. Even said when he's going to come, he's very welcome. How is it now a problem when the coalition, the other political leaders have decided to come together to form their own form of opposition? Why is the APC now strongly against it and think it's all wrong when they didn't think it was wrong for people from the other parties to move to the APC? Is that not double standards?
Governance is bubbling. As we speak, the president is in Brazil, a third world country that has gotten it so well and right in tourism and in agriculture. The president has gone with some governors and cabinet ministers to sign a partnership on how the livestock sector that can put a lot of investment of over $20-something billion. I am a header. I keep both Hausa cows and native cows. I make a lot of returns from it. I know how well I will do when some of this technology are brought in. And that is what Mr. President is doing in Brazil, as you and I speak. We have continued governance commissioning projects. All the administrative structure is moving. But we, the political class, I am not in government. We are the ones doing the politics. I am a political evangelist. We are on political evangelism. We want to win souls to APC. And that is what we are doing. And the governors themselves who have joined us, the people that keep joining us, have admitted that we are persuaded, we are attracted by the good performance of the APC government led by President Tinubu, a man who is supporting us. Before today, constituency projects in the National Assembly used to be nothing. Today, the National Assembly...
We seem to be having an issue with your audio. Your audio has disconnected, but it feels like it fell right in time because we have to wrap up the conversation as we've run out of time. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on the show. You've spoken so strongly about the All Progressives Congress and your criticism of the ADC. Okay. I guess at the end of the day, the Nigerian people will decide at the polls. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.